Coach Friend, thank you for taking time with us off the Block blog, especially after a rough 3-set loss. What are your initial impressions of the match?
Yeah, we came out pretty good, I thought, in game one, and really just, didn't finish. We had 2 or 3 errors, finished went on a couple serves that I thought we should have managed, and a couple errors in a row, swings of momentum off those guys, and they capitalized on it and ended up finishing game one on us. And I really thought we were took a step back and were a little bit down going into that second game. It really took us a while to get back into it. And credit to USC, those guys were playing hard and really going after it from the service line, and did a nice job from putting some pressure on us. And we get ourselves close both in the ends of games 2 and 3, and just we create opportunities and we're not finishing. You saw it happen against UCLA, it happened again tonight, and we've got to get better in those situations and put some games away when we're doing it. I think it's part of when we've gotten a whole bunch of 5-game matches this year, and it's we just got to get a little better in those situations. We're playing good volleyball in spurts, but it's got to be a little bit more consistent. So when those opportunities come up, they're routine.
Which player for USC stood out to you?
Well, Grosso, of course. I mean, he really went after it at the end, had some good kills. I thought Gert played well. He set a good offense. He's a former guy of ours, and he did a nice job for them, and really put some pressure on us with some different decisions that he made. And then Andy was great. Benish for those guys, kind of a staple guy for those. But Grosso really swung them out of a mess a few times, and those guys played some good floor defense and kept them active and alive. And both teams had to adjust to a new environment, a different gym to play in, and neither team has really played in there, so there was no advantage in terms of that. And I think they took some opportunities and were a little bit better than us.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that gym. A short roof, maybe a capacity of 1,000 if you're really lucky, and the windows were closed, so it was kind of hot. Any of those things were a detriment to your team?
No. I mean, you play in different environments, different gyms, big gyms, small gyms. You kind of need to embrace your environment, and those guys. We've got guys that have played USA stuff, and we always talk about it's a big thing. You know what I mean? Whatever gym you go in, you got to figure it out, and everybody's got to play at the same ball, and it goes over the net the same way, and the same ceiling, and all that stuff. And so, no excuses with any of that stuff. I mean, we came here to play high-level volleyball, and we've got one team left. We've played 2 teams already, and we want to try to make ourselves better, so that when we head back to the rest of conference play, we can kind of finish strong.
You mentioned that you played against a former player, Kurt Leisha. What was the emotions for you before the match and during the match playing against a former setter of yours?
Well, I don't know if there's any real emotion in terms of other than, I respect Gert. Gert's a good kid and comes from a good family and, works hard, and that's why we recruited him. And ultimately, he made a decision for him because he wanted to kind of move out west, and he's had a great, career in terms of that stuff, and I wish him the best. And so he's still good friends with a bunch of the guys on the team, and even hung out for a little bit earlier in the day, and so, I think, it is what it is in terms of, that stuff, but, I wish him the best.
Let's talk about a couple of your players. Mitch had a down night last night, but he had a nice bounce back. What did you see out of him that really made you happy?
Well, I think he managed some swings this time when he needed to, where he wasn't doing that the night before, and then he was effective and went after it, and the balls that were in system and good for him. You know what I mean? And so that's what makes Mitch really good. And sometimes he's kind of gone away from that at times this year in certain matches, and we got to get him back in that groove. I think it's really important for us to be successful as we go into this late part of season.
The other thing that stood out to me was the lack of the block. Last night you guys had 14 blocks, tonight only 4.5. What was USC doing to prevent you from getting the block established tonight?
Well, definitely, I think you look at a little bit different style, and I just didn't think we made the adjustment. Grosso and Cook are smaller attackers, you know what I mean, and really challenge the block, and I didn't think we did a good job of timing and getting penetrated on that. Much different than our nets and, Misery in terms of that, you know what I mean? And so you just saw a different style, and from one night to the next, and us not making that adjustment well enough like we needed to, and ultimately we didn't block as many balls in terms of that.
You have off day tomorrow, and then you play at UC Santa Barbara on Saturday. What are you going to be doing with the team to prepare them for your final match of the road trip?
Rest. Just need some rest tomorrow. So, I mean, we got to, we'll sleep in, eat some breakfast. We travel down to Santa Barbara. We won't do any practice or anything like that. We'll probably watch a little bit of film and kind of, tweak some things in terms of, getting better at volleyball. But we just got to rest. I mean, you get this part of the season and you play these back-to-back matches, and a third match in a week, which is really tough sometimes. I think ultimately you got to rely a little bit on your bench, which we tried to do tonight. Coonan didn't play. And at the same time, you got to get rest when it comes up and make sure you're icing and taking care of your body.
Lastly, these 3 matches really don't have any bearing on the MIVA standings for you guys. So give you great experience down the road, especially if you make the NCAA tournament. What are your how will you approach the rest of the season with this experience in hand?
Well, I think we got a match left, and ultimately, we want to get better in this match. Can we improve from the previous 2 matches? We had a good defensive night against UCLA, a good offensive night against USC. Can we put it all together? And that's what needs to happen. In order for us to win league games, we got to kind of do that. And so I'd like to see us just play a little bit more consistent all the way around as we go into Santa Barbara. And they're a good team, you know what I mean? And they're going to play great at home. So we got to be ready to kind of respond. And I think that'll be really important. I think, these non-league matches, people talk about the RPI and all that stuff. And even if we would win all 3, I'm not sure. There's a lot of great teams, Long Beach, BYU, Hawaii, all that stuff. So none of that's guaranteed in terms of any of that stuff. And we teach the guys just take one game at a time and put yourself in a good spot and go out and play. Do you know what I mean? And so, our focus point now is Santa Barbara. League's important as we get into next week, but ultimately that's not my worry right now.
You've final question. You've played Ohio State. You played BYU and Pepperdine, USC, UCLA now. How does the MPSF compare to the MIVA, especially at the top?
Well, I don't think it's ever changed. And people always talk about the MPSF and the MIVA. The MIVA does not compare top to bottom to the MPSF, and that's a MIVA coach telling you that. We've got some teams that can play a pretty high level on the top side. I think you talk about over the past few years where we've been up there in Loyola, and Ohio State, and Ball State sometimes gets into there, and even a few other teams, IPFW a few years back in 06 and 07, and so, it goes through strings but when you really talk about top to bottom, we don't have the same depth, you know what I mean? And I think everybody knows that. It's not a culture shock in terms of that, I think, a little bit. And so I think it is a grind a little bit. But I also think any conference across the board, the EVA, MPSF, and the MIVA, it's a battle. You go into these opponents' gyms that are rivalries and all that stuff, and we can go play at Lindenwood or McKendree or any of the teams like that. And they're all good players and good teams, and those can be tough matches. You look at the EVA and you go into Harvard or Sacred Heart or any of that stuff, and you get these conference matches, and anybody can beat anybody on a given night. You see it here in this conference. You see San Diego's got some great wins. SC's a good team, and they may have a little bit of a 5-8 conference record. Northridge is a good team. So I just think sometimes that stuff goes out the window when you start playing conference games in terms of that stuff. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think you see like Ohio State and Long Beach, and you see some separation with about 3 or 4 teams in terms of that. I just think you see teams like 5 through 20 right now that can beat anybody on any given day. So.
Well, thank you for taking time with us off the Block blog. Good luck, Santa Barbara, and the rest of the season.
Thanks, appreciate it.